Hotel, Texarkana Tower, runway 13, clear for takeoff. Exceed on course.
Students begin classes for a new program at Texarkana College.
We're going to cover manufacturing, operations, pilot careers, and maintenance careers.
Where's the mic?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need like a boom operator. There you go. All right, so tell everybody who you are.
Well, I'm Adger Smith. I was born and raised here in Texarkana, born in 1950, so I'm an old fella. Been around the community for a long time. Went to Liberty ILO, grew up in the Liberty ILO school district, and don't hold that against me.
No, it's all right.
And was a 1968 graduate in Liberty ILO High School. And then I was fortunate enough to get into an engineering program with Red River Army Depot as I graduated high school. There's a gentleman here in town who's rest in peace. He's a good fella, but his name was John Addington. And
Okay.
he brought me into that program at Red River Army Depot, and I went to school a semester and worked toward a mechanical engineering degree. As I progressed through, you do the school and everything. So I started out at TC.
Right.
I was going to do my first 2 years there at TC. And while I was there, they had started the Air Tech program they had actually started it in 1967.
Okay.
And so my first year in college at TC was 1969.
Okay.
And I decided, my dad was a dual service pilot in World War II. He flew B-25s for the Army Air Corps, and then when they didn't need pilots anymore, they shut down the B-25 program. He joined the Marine Corps and flew B-25s, and I think it was an A-26 or an A-25, one of the two. I can't remember the designation.
I tell you what, like as a soldier, it makes me appreciate the Marines all that much more, because like I'm a huge fan of the B-25. It's like one of the coolest planes. Yeah.
It is. It's a cool plane. It was. He never talked much about it whenever I was growing up. He never. He was one of these silent type.
Yeah.
The strong silent type, and he never mentioned it. And actually, in his latter years, when after I got my pilot's license in 1969, I went through the TC program, and it was my idea to do it, and went through the program, and I was Jim Spears and I were for that particular class that we had, the ground school. They chose Larry Gordon was the instructor, him and Jim Blackard, and Jim Spears and I went down to, at the time they were doing the writtens in Shreveport. And we went down to Shreveport and took the written together, as we were kind of a test case for that. That was the biggest, I think the biggest ground school class that they had so far.
Oh, wow.
And that was an interesting outcome on that, because I was the race car guy, the playboy, not playboy, but sometimes I came to school a little, maybe should have slept a little longer. And Jim was the studious, smart guy.
Yeah.
And they all laughed and had a real big time about it, because I ended up outscoring Jim on the written. Yeah, he probably didn't tell you that.
No, he didn't. Well, so I'll tell you what's funny about that story is that, so we recorded a whole episode. We get out there and we're just kind of like BSing in the parking lot. And he goes, have you talked to Adger yet? And I was like, well, he's coming. Like, he's not here yet. And he goes, and he tells me the same story. He goes, yeah, Adger came with this crazy like Corvette or something or another. And we go down there and like stuff. But he never mentioned the fact that you outscored him, which I think is even funnier.
Well, I think I was 94 and he was 88.
Oh, okay.
That's etched into my memory. That's not so good.
Yeah, right. Well, I think it's really funny that they put the two of you together, like opposing personalities.
We
like,
are.
Yeah,
we are.
So.
Jim's laid back. I used to. Age is kind of taking it away from me, but I was real hyper and go. Nothing ever slows down.
Right.
Life was 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And that was the it was really interesting that they did that, and I did not know that story. Jim Blackard and I became real close friends. We did a lot of flying together. We flew a little bit for Tommy, or I flew a little bit with Tommy for Tommy Fuquay here in town at the funeral home, and Jim and I flew family around the country and hauled a few people around for them.
Right.
And Jim and I became real good friends, and I spent a lot of my life between wives.
Right.
I'm all numbered, wrong wife one. Wrong
Right.
wife two.
Right.
And so during those time frames, Jim and I actually lived together. And if whoever owned the house, that's where we stayed.
Right.
I helped him raise his two girls, and it was an interesting relationship there. It's kind of like the Odd Couple, Jim Blackard and I were that way. But Jim Spears, he went on and became CFI and went to work for the college.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the engineering program until I was pretty close to getting a degree. And my dad and I had Texarkana Speed Equipment started, and I had been building race car engines through college. In fact, I had won a national event, drag racing, during college, and set 2 national records. And people ask me why I didn't get my engineering degree, and I always say, well, there was a little redhead that was about this tall,
Right.
and a blue '69 Camaro.
Oh, right.
Those 2 things right there.
We kind of derailed you.
Yeah, kind of off the rails right there.
Right.
And but we did the speed shop deal. My dad and I did together, and eventually I took the machine shop completely away from the parts business. Took the machine shop a different direction. Where Dad and I, he stayed with the parts part of the speed shop, Soul Speed and everything. And we were together. We were kind of pioneers in town for I manufactured the Speed and he sold it.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Right.
the way it was. But I've had an interesting life as far as racing and going around the country and everything. But in flying, I had my flying actually I got to using it in the business because in 1975 I bought a racetrack down in White House, Texas.
I know that.
And I took that racetrack, and I actually rented college planes and flew down there a few times and landed on my racetrack.
Really?
Yeah. And then later on, I sold the property and I took all of the equipment and built the racetrack up at Prescott, Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
And all of the equipment and everything to operate the track and the guardrail, everything came from my White House track. I had a business partner, actually 2 partners, 2 brothers, that we built the track up there. Daryl and Bob Andrews was their name.
All right.
But I landed on that racetrack too. In fact, there's a few pictures out there floating around of an airplane parked down at the end of the racetrack and us racing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, cars going down the
That'd be
track.
cool one to get a hold of. You can find the picture. I'd like to see it.
I had it at one time, but I've moved around and lost so much stuff. I had a fire one time. Yeah, between wives. He needs this, I need this.
Right.
And there goes the picture.
Yeah.
But actually, like I said, I used the flying. I got my private pilot's license in '69. I used it in my business, and then I stayed with the racing and engine building and running around the country. And of course, Jim passed away, and I can't remember the date. It was about 95 or 96. I can't remember the exact date. And I was running around the country racing and everything, and it was probably, he was in a motorcycle wreck. I expected him to, he was such a good pilot, I knew he never would crash. And if there ever was trouble in the airplane, Jim Blackard, there's 2 guys that I would like to be with in a bad situation in the airplane.
All right.
Actually 3.
Okay.
Me,
Right.
Jim Blackard,
Okay.
and I don't know. I don't know. That could be two more.
Right.
Anyway, I better not mention his name. I could get him in some trouble. But they're real good guys, and of course Jim taught at the college, and then the other guy went through the college program too.
Yeah. Right.
But it's the flying was something that I really liked, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the college program. I thought it was a real good program. Of course, gosh, I can't remember the guy's name that started the thing. This getting old is terrible.
Yeah, right. I'd be like, so like they started in 1967.
So 67 is when they started the deal. Barry Telford is his son.
Okay.
And not Telford, Barry.
I know who you're talking about.
Murdoch.
Murdoch.
Barry
Yeah,
Murdoch
I was gonna say it's
is
written
his
on my
son.
board in there. I had to go.
Okay, yeah, Barry Murdoch is his son, and I can't remember. Bill Murdoch started the program, and that was when Cheesy Nelson was the president at Texarkana College.
Okay.
And
why did he decide to start the program? Was he a pilot?
he was a pilot.
Okay.
And I don't know all the particulars about it, but and of course being a kid, I mean, I was 18 years old. I was 17 years old in '67, and I didn't know enough about the community and what was going on, but obviously looking back, there was a need in the community for the program.
Yeah.
And since there's a lot of people that have went through that program.
Yeah.
That have gone on and done real well
Flying.
flying.
Yeah.
There's people don't realize it, but they've probably flown in Southwest Airlines with captains. There's a couple of guys I know that were captains through the program.
Right.
And it's like Ben Morphew. Well, that was the other guy. I reeled into it.
Yeah, right.
like Ben Morphew would be the other guy that I'd want to be with,
Right.
as far as if there was a problem. Ben, built the pits, and when I was when we were all young men,
Right.
and was flying around here. He flew the mail routes for stagecoach lines that flew freight and mail and stuff in. And then he progressed on. I think he flew for Trans-Texas, and he retired out as a captain for Southwest.
Oh wow.
And he still lives over in the Dallas area and still flies.
Oh right.
And
I bet you that guy's got some stories. I mean, just like building a pit is like that's an accomplishment in itself, much less everything else.
Yeah, there was an old buddy of mine. He's not with us anymore. His name was Ricky Willett. He brought. Him and Ben were trying to make the smoke system for the thing.
Oh really?
Yeah, and they couldn't get it to work right. So me going to college, I had a little bit of fluid dynamics.
Right.
I knew a little bit about stuff like that. So Ricky brought the stuff over, and I got to looking at how it was supposed to be put together, and worked it out, put a restrictor in it, and made it spray a little better, and I got his smoke system working.
Okay.
It was really interesting. And of course, he's a good flyer. I was out at Ricky's house in his shop working, and we had he was building a 55 Chevrolet, and I'd built a supercharged engine, blown 427 for it, and we heard this airplane coming. Mm-hmm. And we stepped outside the shop and looked up, and there goes Ben overhead. But he's inverted.
Right.
He's upside down, and he flies from, sunset, horizon to horizon, upside down. It was late in the evening, it was getting towards sunset, and he was headed back to the airport.
Right.
And we were both scratching our head on what was going on. So, a week or two later, didn't have cell phones, not back in those days and all that stuff. So a week or two later, we ran into him. what was going on? He says, well, I just wanted to see how long I could fly upside down before I blacked out. And he went,
Pretty
from
ways.
horizon to horizon. That's how much of it we saw.
Yeah, right.
But that, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of history in this program.
Yeah.
And when we started out, there was over here where the FBO is now. There was a little bitty, trailer, little double wide trailer.
Right.
And that was where they had, of course, the ground school was held over to college in classrooms.
Right.
And we were over there. I think they called it an old ag building. I can't remember which was one of those old Quonset hut buildings that they used to have. I don't
think they have it anymore.
I think they went away a long time ago.
Right.
But the trailer over here, the FBO, where Signature is now, is where we started. We were all flying out from over there.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And we had a couple of 150s. I think there was 3 of them, and I can't remember the numbers, but and then we had I think it was a 182. I think we had a 182, and then there was they had one more plane.
Was it a Cessna 310?
They didn't have it to start with, but they got it.
Right.
And that was, I'll tell you a neat story about that.
All right, there.
Larry Gordon, they got that 310, and Larry Gordon, he says, come on. Pile 3 of us in there, and says, I'm going to show you bad. It was almost below minimums.
All right.
That day. It was one of those days we were just hanging around out here.
Yeah, right.
And he says, we're going to do some actual IFR.
Okay.
He said, get in there, fire up, take off. We're off up in the clouds running around. And he's going to do a VOR approach to 1331. Okay, and we're out there circling around the VOR. He's lining up everything.
Right.
I'm sitting right seat.
Okay.
And we got, I can't remember who all was in the back seat. Jim might have been in there. And we're up in the clouds running around, and I'm watching what he's doing.
Right.
And very, very close, He starts down, he says, now, we ought to be breaking out of the clouds about now and see the threshold.
Right.
Well, yeah, we break out of the clouds all right.
Right.
There used to be a restaurant out on Highway 71 out there called the Hush Puppy.
Yeah, I remember the Hush. Yeah,
Had a big old sign of a dog.
Right. And you're looking at it.
And we're on approach to the dog.
I take it you went around.
Gordon says, oops. And we went around. Back up in the clouds we go.
Oops is there.
So he really showed us a VOR approach.
Yeah, right.
And we wandered around up in the clouds, and he straightened out what he messed up on. Right. And then the next time we made a good approach.
No more landing at the Hush Puppy.
No more landing at the Hush Puppy. But Rogers, I think that other boy's name was Rogers. It was in the back seat. Had a trophy shop here in town.
Okay.
But that was a little actual stuff. And of course, I could probably tell some stories about out in the training areas that would get us all in trouble.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, like
statute of limitations on this.
No, I don't think so. Jim said that at one point in time somebody crashed an airplane or whatever. Yeah. What happened?
I don't know. I had already graduated out of the program at that time that happened, and I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But one of the favorite illegal things that I have seen done.
Right. You have never been involved in.
I've never been involved in.
Right.
Was dropping oranges on things.
Right.
Little bomb run here and there. And then the toilet paper trick. Have you?
I'm not familiar with it.
You're not familiar with the
No.
toilet paper trick?
No,
You
no.
Go up real high and throw out a roll of toilet paper, and then go back and forth and cut it up as many times as you can.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
You
really?
ought to try it sometime.
Yeah, I think I might actually.
Yeah, I've been in a plane while somebody does that. You know,
Right.
you get into some real good maneuvering, to
try to cut it?
cut back and forth across it.
So you just kick it out the
Kick it out
window,
the window.
and
Let
it
it
just starts
unroll.
right? Yeah, I guess it's not going anywhere because it's not going to fall
going
down
down.
fast. Yeah, just like really slow. Yeah, that's pretty. So what? Like, I guess you could do it over somebody's house. And
No, I've seen them do it out at the practice area, out over the countryside.
Right.
If it fell on a cow or something, it
Yeah,
probably wouldn't hurt them.
right. That. Yeah, Jim talked about like doing flower bag drops for like competitions and stuff like that.
We did a little bit of that.
That's pretty cool. So
That is, yeah.
yeah.
And they had a real good trick that they pulled on us when our group that I was in, we were doing our long cross countries and just our cross countries. They got out a sectional.
Right.
They drew a circle on the sectional and said,
Go there.
"Go there."
Right.
And Jim might have told you this story. I hope it.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, and the idea was, when you got back,
Right.
they asked you what you saw when you got right there. They wouldn't tell you
What was
on
there.
they wouldn't tell you what was
So it
there.
was like a test, yeah.
Right, it was a test.
Right.
To see if you really went where you were supposed to go, where you had plotted the course for, and
Right.
and if you had flown your cross country correctly.
Yeah. Right.
It's one thing to get out here on cross country and get a little bit lost, and you kind of wander around and find where you're supposed to
Yeah,
go.
right.
That's been done before too.
Right.
But you go down there and it was down toward Tyler area. You
Right.
head down that way and fly along, everything, go down there. I'm to where I'm supposed to be, and
See anything.
doggone, man. Yeah, I saw something, a lot of woods, a lot of pine trees,
Yeah.
circled around, came home.
Right.
I landed, got out of the plane. Gordon and Blackard are waiting for me inside, and they said, throw the sectional out and said, "Did you go to that point right there?" And I said, "Yeah, went right there."
Yeah.
I circled around that point,
Right.
and they said, "What'd you see?" And I said, "Bunch of pine trees,
Yeah.
road going through there, going into town,
Right.
Well, what did you really see?" "Well, I don't know." "Well, what did you want me to see,
Yeah.
And I didn't think much about it. I said, "They're paving a runway down there, though." "All right."
Right.
Well, they were building the Gilmer Airport. They were taking the Gilmer Airport from grass to pavement.
Oh, right.
And it wasn't on the sectionals yet.
Okay. There
So that was one of the tests that they pulled on us.
All right. Go see if they can find that kind of stuff. Yeah, he told me a story about somebody landing out in front of the college at one point or another.
They did. I was off working. I don't remember all the particulars about that.
Well, it kind of paints a picture of like what it was like back then.
And I've lost so much memory. I had a bad race car wreck in '99. I've lost a lot of memories.
Oh, okay.
But I could probably come up with even more stuff.
Right.
But it was it was just the good old days.
Yeah,
We
right.
were a bunch of kids, and we were all of us were doing something that we enjoyed.
Yeah. Right.
And there was a camaraderie about it, which I'm pretty sure today you would have the same thing. I mean, it's like when I had my two planes out here.
Yeah.
I had a Commander and a 172. I bought my my stepdaughter married a guy up in Kentucky, and it was a 9-hour drive. Well, I've been married to my wife for about 11 years, the current wife.
Current wife, you're right.
She calls herself right wife.
Right. Well, no more in between the wives.
No more WWs, wrong wife.
There you go.
And I've been married to her since '99.
Right.
In 2012, she married a guy up in Kentucky, and it was a 9-hour drive. And I said, I ain't about to drive up there to see them, because it got two granddaughters going up there with her.
Right.
And she she said, well, how are we going to do this? So I got over on the computer. I got to looking. I bought an airplane that was out down in, actually it was based out of Nacogdoches, but it was at Lufkin, the airport there at Nacogdoches, or Lufkin actually is where it's at.
Right.
And so I went down there with Chris Bookout. Chris Bookout's been a friend of mine for years and years. We used to ride motorcycles of course he's a little younger than I am, but when he was a kid,
right.
we used to ride motorcycles and do stupid things on motorcycles.
Right.
So I got him in there. I hadn't flown since '96 when Jim died. That was the last time Jim Blackard. That was the last time I went flying, and we went down there, and I drug out all of my old stuff and sat down there and bought me some new sectionals.
A little refresher.
A little refresher, and I did what I was supposed to do, and we went down there, and he and I went over the plane, looked at it real good. I had already bought it, and it was in the hangar down there, and it was not real good looking because it hadn't been sitting outside. The paint on it was a 3.
Yeah.
But the thing had a power plant and everything. That's what I was interested in, being that I built race car engines. I'm an engine guy.
Yeah.
I was looking for mechanicals.
Yeah, right.
And the thing had conformed to all ADs, and they had new Millennium cylinders on it that didn't have but 300 hours on them. And it was way before TBO.
Oh, right.
And the airframe on it, I think, was like 2,600 hours.
Okay.
And so, and it was a 61 model, 172.
Right.
And it had sat around a lot.
Yeah, right.
And it was had good for the time. It had good instrumentation and stuff in it, and had a Garmin, and I can't remember. I think it was a 395 or something like that. It was one of the old, one of the first generations.
Yeah, like those big clunky, big boxes or whatever. Right.
Yeah. And it was which was new to me because I flew with 2 or 3 VORs. That's how I learned.
Right.
And we went down there and got in that booger, and I flew home, and Bookout sat over there and didn't say anything.
Right.
And about half, I had got a hangar down in Atlanta because there was none available up here in Texarkana, and we were almost to Atlanta, and he looked over at me and he says, "How long has it been since you flew?" And I said, "Well, it's probably," I said, it was 95 or 96 when Jim passed away, and I said, "That's the last time I was in a plane, was prior to him."
Yeah.
And he shook his head, and I said, "What's the problem?" And he says, "Nothing." He says, "I'm not going to have to fly very long with you to get you back current and get you." He says, "You're at about, if you rate them on a scale of 1 to 100, you're a 98 right now."
Right. Well, there you go.
I said, "Well, that's lots of hours." And Texarkana College, I had a lot of good instruction.
Yeah.
Because I actually had 3 instructors. I had Gordon, and I had John Ferguson, and I had Jim Blackard.
Okay.
And so you got with the 3 instructors, they got a little different feel. They all taught just a little bit different.
Right.
And everybody's got their quirks about how they think you should do things.
Yeah, and that's something that I've picked up on. So I've had several different flight instructors and stuff, and there's things that you'll learn from some of them. They're like, I want to absolutely be just like this guy in this one thing, but I don't want to be anything like even this thing over here. And every single one you pick up, and you kind of you take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you kind of make your own style, I think. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I was with one guy one time who was going to do a real quick refresher over in Dallas, and this guy was an old jet pilot.
All right.
And he made you fly a prop plane like it was a jet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, there's no turning base, chopping the power, and gliding into base. Putting your flaps down and stuff. It's tractor it in.
Oh, really?
Power it in.
Right.
And it was, I didn't like that.
Oh, no.
To me, well, it was just different.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
Just
100%.
different way of doing it, different way that I was taught.
Right.
And that was one of the things another thing too, that they kind of changed. I may have this backwards. They when we, in the middle of us being taught, they came out and said, okay, it's going to be different. We're going to use the power for altitude, and we're going to use
Your pitch for airspeed.
pitch for airspeed. And
Right.
I can't remember who it was, jumped in one of the 150s and said, I'm getting some airspeed, catch me down the runway.
right. You usually around flat.
Motor sitting there dead. You know?
Yeah, right.
I can't remember. That was one of the funny things I remembered out of the past. Immediately, come right out of the lesson. Jumped in the plane and said that.
Let's do it.
Of course, didn't move.
Right.
But anyway, and when I bought this 172, and we started flying up to Kentucky, and during that time, my dad had gotten sick, and we were taking care of him. He had Alzheimer's, and he fell, broke a hip, so we moved him into our house. I'm one of the guys that's real fortunate. I got to take care of my dad instead of put him in a nursing home.
Yeah, right.
He stayed with me.
Yeah.
And we kept his house where and we put him with a caregiver where in the daytime where he'd stay with it.
Right.
And then he and I would get in. He loved to fly, and that was one of the things. He loved flying.
Right.
I mean, that's why when the Army Air Corps didn't want him, the Marine Corps wanted him.
Yeah. He's all about it.
He's all about that. That was a funny deal.
So you're getting to fly your dad whenever he's super old, like
he's like in his 80s.
That's pretty cool.
We're flying around, and it was he's in a walker, and it was really funny because I'd say, let's go out to Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Let's go out to the airport, Dad, and wax a plane, do something,
Yeah, right.
And you could hear his walker clackety clack 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 clack.
Yeah.
It was like a little puppy dog. He'd be over at the door,
Ready
waiting to go.
Yeah, right.
My wife got the biggest kick out of it.
Oh, really?
And it was really a crazy deal. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I can tell you, when we were flying,
Yeah.
he became my father. He and I were close,
Yeah.
and he became my father from 25, 30 years ago. The Alzheimer's and dementia just kind of faded.
Just went away.
When we were flying. We'd be flying around and we'd be talking like you and I are talking right
It's
now.
like nothing's going on.
And the sucker could still navigate.
Really?
You give him a sectional,
Yeah.
and he would tell you where you were.
Oh, right.
So I was flying him around quite a bit, and my sister lives in Edmond, Oklahoma. So we were spending a lot of time going up to Edmond,
Right.
and we leased us a place up in Branson. So we were going up to Branson. Well, that old 172 is a little slow,
Yeah.
So I bought a Commander 112 TC, and we also had relatives in Colorado. And buying that TC, we were able to do the altitude work in Colorado, and it was really neat putting him in a good plane.
Right.
And I was taking him up to Oklahoma City one time, and I didn't turn the GPS on, and I did it on purpose,
Right.
because
Just let
I had
him-
been up there so much.
Yeah.
I knew how to get there.
Right.
And I didn't need anything. And he's over there with a sectional in there in his hand, and we're going right across the McAllister base up there, where the military base up there at McAllister. We're going right across that thing.
Right.
I'm down here looking down there. There wasn't any NOTAMs about them blowing up stuff, so
Yeah,
we
right.
carefully right over it. And he says, "You're off course." And I said, "No, Dad, I'm pretty much on course."
Right.
And so, you know how dads are; they're always right.
Yeah, right. You might as well just let them be right,
Let 'em be
even if
right,
they're wrong. Yeah.
And so, but I was going to prove a point. And so I turned the GPS on, and I already had the coordinates programmed in, hit the button, comes up, it shows us 15 feet left of course.
Right.
Course line,
Yeah.
plane's 15 feet left of course. And he looked at that, and I said, "See, Dad, see that little airplane? That's us right there. That little moving car." I said, "Now it says down here we're 15 feet left of course."
Right.
He looked over at me and he said, "Son, I know you did something to make that do that."
Right.
Yeah, Dad, I turned it on.
Yeah, right.
So he was still right. We were off course.
Well, there you go. Well, so like looking at like our flight and maintenance program, like in looking back on your experience, like how would you like what advice would you have to give us to make it as good as it once was?
Oh, I think you can make it better.
All right. How so?
We don't want to make it as good. We want to make it better.
Better. There you go. Right.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here now and looking over there at some jet engines. You know, that's already better for the A&P school.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, you know, things have modernized since I learned to fly because when I got back into flying in 2012, you know, the GPSs had really come along, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, ADF is out, you know.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You know, that was, you know, what?
Yeah.
You know, and we you know, it's you know, you young folks you'll modernize it and make it better.
Right.
What the time that we're coming into, I'm not sure where the industry is going.
Yeah.
I've kind of gotten away from it as far as the flying part. I sold both of my planes 4 years ago.
Okay.
Dad had passed away, and we didn't have any need for it in our life. There was no mission.
Yeah. Right.
And so I sold both planes, the 172 and the Commander, and there was another thing too. You know, I race still at my age. I still want to race. I quit racing to take care of Dad.
Right.
And I've still got all of my. I've got one championship car, and I've still got a car that I've set several records with. I still have everything to go back racing, and it was so much easier to get out of the recliner and come out here and fly around and have a good time.
Right.
Than to go out and work on the car and go to the races and all that stuff. So I had to pick one or the other.
Right. I understand. Yeah, that's it.
But no, I'm looking forward to the college bringing the program back. I was glad to be a part of that program, and it was one of those things that it was kind of defining in my life. You know, it gave me a direction. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be on the airport board, was to help with the airport and give back to the community.
Yeah, right.
And y'all, you know, bringing this back, putting good people.
Yeah.
In the program, and that's what I want to see is you know, you bring in good people, good pilot training, and good A&P training. That I know there's a need for A&P, because I had a hard time getting the annuals done, and when you've got two airplanes,
that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can wear one guy out.
Yeah,
right. On one airplane. And of course, with all of the hangars that we have out here at the airport, you know, there's 38 other guys that have hangars that need somebody. So
yeah,
I know there's a market for good A&P out here.
Yeah, there is. So like Boeing's predicting by 2042 that 149,000 A&P jobs will go left unfilled up until, unless we do something about it. And so they put out a market outlook forecast, and so there's 650,000 worldwide, 149,000 in just the U.S. alone.
149,000 jobs.
Yeah. That's just but part of it's because of the way that Part 147 training has gone. Another part of it is just demographic shift. You're seeing the baby boomers retire, and there's just not enough people to fill the vacancies anymore. Another factor was always pay for mechanics for a long time was super low. It's just here recently starting to catch back up to where now it's if you had told me whenever I was high school or whatever, it's hey, look, you could go do a year here at TC and then go make $100,000 base, before overtime or whatever, which you can now. Back then it was you were going to make good money, but it's not going to be that good, and things might have been a little bit different. But and now it's a good place to be for sure.
Well, that's you brought up something there. I was always, when I was on the school board, Texarkana, Arkansas school board, I was always a proponent for teaching trades and crafts.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody's going to go to college.
Yeah.
And a program like this, you got to be smart to do it.
Yeah.
To be part of it. I mean, the guys that these guys, these A&Ps are, your life depends on what they're doing.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a
following all the regs, reading all the regs, and understanding
right. Yeah.
how you're supposed to do something.
Yeah, it takes a very specific kind of individual that's like both technically capable, but there's also an academic portion of it as well. That you've got to be able to marry those two up. And so you'll find some guys that are really, really technically capable, but they just can't do the paperwork, the bookwork side of it. And you have the other side of the spectrum. An A&P is and a pilot really is the same kind of person that's like really good at both of those worlds. And so that's who we're looking for.
Well, that's that's another thing too, that I think being a proponent for the community growing. We're trying to get some new industry here on the airport, and this program, this A&P program and the flight training program, could play into what we bring in as an industry that will locate on the airport.
Right.
I know when ASU was here, a lot of our board members were not exactly happy that everybody was going off.
Yeah, right.
We were training a lot of students, and it was like, what do we call it, brain drain?
Yeah.
They leave the community.
Right.
But I looked at that a different way. They left the community, but they went out in the world and got experience.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a real good example of that.
Right.
You came home.
Yeah, right.
Everybody likes to come home.
Yeah, right. So that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I left in 2005, did the Army, got out, did Boeing, did several other aviation jobs, and ended up back here. And so it is kind of interesting that you were right on at least in my case, that you kind of created a person, sent them out, and they bring all that experience back to a place that doesn't have that kind of experience.
Right.
So
and then you're going to feed the community, and things are going to grow.
Yeah, right.
And that's I think that's a good dynamic of what we see this starting to be.
Yeah.
And if you have this here, you've got it going for a few years. We've got some things working that may provide some pretty high paying jobs for these individuals right here on Texarkana Airport.
Oh yeah.
If it COVID put us a little bit behind.
That's all right.
But we're coming out of it, and the industries that we've been talking to, the businesses that we've been talking to, are now planning to move ahead with some of it. So we've been in the running on a couple of them.
Yeah.
That we were close to getting.
Yeah.
We've still got a few things going.
Well, yeah. So me and Paul are going to MRO America, and we've already got meetings set up with all kinds of companies, and every single one of them, they want to know about what's their workforce solution.
Right. Workforce solution is a big deal.
Yeah. It's every single you listen to any kind of Aviation Week podcast, any sort of aviation news. I don't care what it's about. It could be about the European need for engine parts or whatever else, and it always tracks back to workforce. They're like, well, we can do this, but we don't have the people. But we can do this, but we don't have the people constantly. And it seems to be the biggest need. So it's really smart for this program to get set up and get going, because you're providing a commodity that is really hard to find. Everyone's looking for A&P mechanics, and
well, I've got to hand it to TC and to the staff and the board over there, seeing that there's a need for that in the community, and bringing you in to do it. Right. All of the cards falling in the right place
at the right time. Yeah, really, and it's it's providential. It's just that it all happens. I was telling this to Spears earlier. It was just look, if you look at House Bill 8 passes so that we change the funding model, which makes this more accessible to people and cheaper for students. Mm-hmm. You look at the Part 147 change with the FAA happening at the same time, and then simultaneously, you guys are out here working to try to get industry to move here on to the airport. All of these things happen at one time. It's you're never going to have this opportunity again. No. Everything is brand new and happening at the same place at the same time. It's that is once in a lifetime. Yeah, and so super happy to be here.
When we open the new terminal this summer, And I think the opening's set up for June 28th, I believe, is where we've got the ribbon cutting. And we get the new terminal open, and then the next program we're going to work on here at the airport is lengthening and strengthening the runway.
Yeah, right.
Which will bring
Bigger
planes.
Yeah.
And it will allow bigger freighters. In other words, we may end up getting some freight business here, or a repair depot.
Yeah.
Where these A&Ps can go to work.
Heck yeah.
Right here in town and repair.
That'd be pretty nice. My first job in doing like heavy commercial work, it was working at Aviation Technical Services in Everett, Washington, and that was a production. Like I remember, like I always tell the story. I walked out and I saw my first 737 like up close, not like through the glass or whatever. But, like walked underneath, and I was like, oh my god, it's so
huge.
Big. Yeah, it's huge. And I'm just like enamored by this, like the Southwest jet. I was just like, I get to work on this. This is like insane. It's like working on the house, but it flies.
Yeah.
And the dude's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just looking at this plane. And he goes, you're out back. And I was like, oh, of course I'm gonna go to the small plane. And he takes me out to a 777-300. And I was like, oh wow, it's something else, And so like you get to do like pre-flight on something that big, that complex. It's just like wow. And then you get to this point where you're enamored by it, and you get completely overwhelmed by like, oh my gosh, like I have to try to remember. It's like go flip this switch. It's like, well, there's 1,000 of them. I have to go find the thing, Then you get to the point where it becomes second nature to you, and you start playing with it. So like the ADF stuff, I used to turn the ADF on, link it to the public address system, and then turn it to turn the radio on. Yeah, right.
We did the same thing.
Yeah. So I'd have like listen to Sherlock Holmes, and like there'd be like the cleaning crews, like all these little Hispanic grandmas, and I'd be like, hey Lupita, like what do you think Sherlock Holmes is going to do today? She'd be like, whatever. It was all kinds of fun. Or one of my favorite jokes to play is that they would come in. I would be doing avionics pre-flight at night, and they would be cleaning the jet for the flight crew to come in the morning. And so they'd always come in, and they would go to the right side of the cockpit to like lean out to clean they'd open up the door or the window and then clean the front of the glass, right? Well, they have like the kinetic stall warning, whatever, that shakes the stick. So they'd be leaned over on it, and I would kick that test on and shake it, and they would scream every night. Sometimes the same woman every night. They're like, whatever, because they're like 3 stories up, and they're getting shook in their belly. Like, man, that was so much fun to do. Like, I really miss doing some of this silliness that we would do.
See, even the younger generation like to have a good time.
Oh yeah, just harass each other. It was like
glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. Well, Adger, thanks so much for being on, man. We're hitting about an hour or so. So
Well, I mean, I could probably keep going. And,
yeah, right. There you go.
But yeah, that's you're right about bringing things in here. When we get the runway extended and strengthened, we're going to see bigger planes, and we're going to be seeing planes with big engines like that over there on it.
It's something different.
Or bigger.
Yeah, I told Jim like the one of the biggest strengths, or one of the biggest struggles that I had coming in is that like you go to talk to schools, and it's just like, hey, like who's thinking about like a career in aviation? Nobody is, like, because nobody's been around planes. They don't know anything about them or anything else like that. So I was like, man, this is a problem we're gonna have to overcome. It's like marketing is like the big struggle. It's just like we can train them and stuff like that, but we have to get them thinking about becoming pilots or mechanics. And like the moment we get the first MRO in, where they're starting to see like 777s come in and land, 37s come in and land, all of a sudden you can't help but look up because it's just right there. They're so big. All of a sudden that'll start to change the dynamic. For sure.
With the way we have FedEx in our community right now, we've got the big freight terminal out here on Broad Street, 67 further out, and then right across the street from the airport here, is the ground terminal. Yeah, right. Where they do all the ground shipping out of. And when we get this runway extension done and strengthened, I kind of figure FedEx is probably going to start looking at us for some sort of air terminal.
Yeah, right.
And of course, we're not in the position to be talking to them right now.
Yeah, right.
But
in the near future,
it's going to happen, because the terminal opening this summer, and then we start in September. If the FAA gives us all of our approvals, that big question mark there with FAA. Right. If they give us all of our approvals, then we'll start on this runway project. Right. And then that will really bring our airport up to date.
Yeah, right.
It will be an airport that can compete with any other airport in the area, and will this new terminal is going to offer amenities that we haven't had.
We never had, yeah.
We'd never had jet bridges.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we got 2 of them now.
I know, isn't that wild?
It is
Yeah,
wild.
and I was thinking about that the other. It's because it's just like you walk out our hangar, you can see it. You know,
Yeah.
I look at that all the time and think that like, well, one day you're going to get on a small CRJ, you're going to walk out and get onto it like it was like 1945 or whatever.
Yeah.
Then the next day you're going to go to a brand new terminal and walk on a modern jet bridge. You get on either one of 2 different 737s that could be parked out there. That's crazy. That's a crazy jump, like from like a little bitty 30 or 40 seat plane to like 2 modern single aisle jets.
And you can take my life, what I learned at TC about flying and got the bug and everything.
Yeah.
And then I've all the way through my life being here in the community, and it's kind of gone. That's where I've gone.
Yeah, right.
I got to see all of this.
Yeah. It's a cool story because I mean, like the way the airport had to look totally different.
It did.
when you first started.
It was one hangar.
Yeah.
When we started,
When
I started, one hangar. And of course, when Truman Arnold set in and did the TAC Air deal, then they made, they redid all the hangars, or started building new hangars, built all the T hangars in the early 70s,
Right.
which they didn't have whenever I was here.
Right.
And if you had an airplane here in Texarkana, you parked it out there on the tarmac,
Right.
strapped it down, and that, and of course, he helped build a lot of all the hangars, actually, except one, and they're all painted alike and look alike, and
Right.
that was modernizing us back in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And then we progressed on up, signatures here now.
Yeah.
And with the FBO, and eventually we'll have enough traffic here. There'll probably be 2 FBOs.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And TC may want to run an FBO.
Yeah,
that would be good training.
Yeah, yeah.
Could be like who's that? Embry.
Yeah,
Embry Riddle does that.
Embry Riddle does that. I believe Liberty does. I know Ole Miss does. And so it's definitely kind of a graduation if you go from being like, we're customers of the FBO to now all of a sudden we have our own FBO and like we're servicing the community.
Right.
Like, wow, that's good for the students because they're learning the business side of things and like all of the ramp rat type activities. Then on top of that, like because we're a nonprofit, we don't have to like charge like premium prices. We can be cheaper for everybody else. And you're growing aviation that way.
Right.
And the more you grow aviation, the more you grow yourself. It's a symbiotic relationship. So it's like, why wouldn't we do that?
Well, I mean, I like the idea of having the business aspect of teaching people how to run the business part of the FBO.
Yeah.
I worked for Hot Rod Magazine for 9 years, and we did a thing called Engine Masters Challenge.
Right.
And University of Northwestern Ohio, up in Lima, Ohio, was the college that we had the program at. And they were a real progressive college, but they were a trade school or specialty school.
Right.
They dealt with strictly automotive and automotive performance. And what I was in down here, my machine shop building race car engines and stuff, they taught the next group of people. And I got to be around those students and stuff up there for 9 years.
Right.
And they even bought a dirt track, and they had a racetrack management program where they ran their own racetrack three months out of the year and had a class where they taught the students the management part, down to the concession. I mean, it was a bona fide business.
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to be able to do something like that for us because that's one of the things, especially talking to Ruggles.
Yeah.
Like what I've noticed about him is I've always associated that he's the helicopter guy, right? Okay, and he is, but the more you start to like hear his deal, it's like, no, he's the aviation entrepreneur. That's what he is. It's it's just like he was never satisfied with like we got this off the ground, and then it's like I'm bored. Like, what's something else we can do? Or like, can we cultivate a new line of business here or that or there, whatever. And if you want to try to like grow the community, like grow people like that just sit around and like, what's an opportunity that's in front of me or a problem that I have that I can go and try to solve or fix or try to profiteer off of.
You bring that up. He's got lots of military experience.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, I sold my 172 to a gentleman over in Clarksville that has a flight school he works out of Clarksville.
Right.
He's kind of an independent type deal that he operates. Well, him and Ruggles were in the military together.
Oh, really?
And I was over here at the hangar one day,
Right.
showing my plane to Dan, and Dan was sitting there talking and everything, and Ruggles walked in.
All right.
An hour and a half, I just sat there and listened to the reminiscing and the military jargon,
Right.
and all about the different flying and everything, and it was amazing.
Right.
The background between those two guys.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you know, a lot of people don't get to see that side of Don.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
But I was very, very fortunate to that hour and a half was a highlight recently, you know.
Yeah, right. You get to see that whole kind of that other side of this character that you know in your entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something else. Yeah, it's aviation's an interesting place and with a lot of different opportunities, and it's cool to see somebody come along and take those opportunities as they come and say like, okay, well, here's this new tool. How can I use it to make all of our lives better? And that seems to be what he did with LifeNet, and then on with the Helicopter Southwest as well. So, yeah,
That was that's and Don's been a big proponent of a lot of things. I served 4 years on the board with him before he got off. He and I both came off the board at the same time, and now I'm back on the airport board.
right.
And we were he was good to work with. He brought in the planning stages of the terminal.
Right.
You know, he brought a lot to that.
Right.
And it was and we wanted to do some things where we had general aviation or you know could come in, but you know, he had some ideas, we had some ideas, but FAA wouldn't let us do it. Well, we're going to have to do commercial flights out of there, and,
Yeah, right.
and have general aviation on this side. But hey,
Right.
that gives us more room on this side.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like almost like having like the bigger jets like separated from all smaller
Yeah.
airplanes. You kind of have like the cool side of the airport and the business side of the airport.
That's it.
Yeah. And I kind of like that. I mean, especially from a flying standpoint, you don't have to worry about as much like wake turbulence or getting flipped over because you're too close to some 737 that's running up or whatever. So that's kind of it's definitely safer and less stressful that way. So
And that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, right. So,
And it's going to give us an opportunity. I'd like to see the flight school operating out of the old terminal.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
You hear that, TC?
Right. Yeah, that's we'll eventually need a building. We actually had conversations this week about that. Like, what does our future footprint look like? And you could start the flight school out of this building or whatever. But if we get too many more aircraft, you're gonna get, especially with like mechanic students and flight happening here, it's gonna get crowded. We're gonna need to expand out and try to find some other like home for those pilots and stuff. But keeping the bay open to where you can pull aircraft in to do 100 hours and annuals and stuff like that's gonna be essential too.
Yeah, well, that'll be a big addition to the general aviation here, getting the A&Ps and the teaching.
Yes.
And being able to do annuals.
Yeah.
That's I think that's a real big plus for the airport as well as for the students
Right.
and for the college.
Yeah, and part of the new ACS, they have to do parts of, at least they'll say like perform a part of a 100-hour or perform a part of an annual or whatever. So you take one annual, chop it up in 10 or 15 different pieces and farm it out to all the different students.
And you can rotate the
Right.
different aspects that
Yeah.
they're going to be working with.
And so being able to like grab some, like community members' plane, pull it in here and just like, tear the plane apart, inspect everything, put it all back together again. You're helping them out and you're helping the students out simultaneously, and they're getting real world experience rather than just like here's a trainer or something notional. Like this is an actual airplane, and you're going to actually have to like do things to it.
Are you sit at a countertop and you take one thing apart, and
Yeah,
put it right
right.
back together? That's
that's good,
That's
but
good.
it's not really going to help you a whole lot.
Let's start there and then move to the real thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's kind of like our setup is to try to do video lessons in the evening, like that's their homework, and then you're going to say like I'm going to time a magneto. So okay, well this is a video on time a magneto, so you have an idea of what you're going to be looking at, and the next day you come in, you actually do it. And so that way, like you're maximizing the hanger time. Like when you're here, you're actually working with your hands and learning rather than let me sit here and just talk to you for an hour or whatever.
Here, this is a magneto.
Yeah,
you gotta go through the magneto 101. You start there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you start to learn with your hands. So there you go. Yeah. But yeah, Adger, so thanks so much for coming out. Like it's really great to hear like all the stories. And I've always thought that like having an organization that knows its history and who it is essential to being successful 100%. So
I bet we can find some more people to drag in.
Oh yeah. I want to hear more like toilet paper cutting stories.
You like that?
Oh yeah, just shit.
Man, I hope they don't come back and get me for my friends that did that.
yeah, I don't think so. No, like even like when me and Jim were talking in the parking lot, and he was getting in his car, and he goes, "Yeah, I can tell you about." No, I'm not gonna tell you about it. I'm not gonna tell you about it. And I was like, "Those are the stories I want to hear, man." Like, so,
well, I can tell you something. One of the stupidest things that I ever did.
All right, let's hear it.
It was one of the stupidest.
Okay.
When Blackard and I were flying around, sometimes we'd get up and fly around in training, and we'd spend quite a bit of time. You had 4 hours of fuel. Right. 3.5 hours of fuel. If you had 30 minutes, spare reserve, and we'd be up there quite a while. And of course, you've got to have body functions occasionally.
Yeah, right.
And Jim would have me land at some of the weirdest places.
So he can go
right? He knew where a lot of old grass strips were, and he'd have me land on these old grass strips. Well, he had me land on a sandbar down in Red River one time. And I was really, boy, you talking about drawing up on that one. That was first a good experience for me.
Yeah.
Of course, I trusted him as an instructor. He's a great instructor. And I land on this sandbar, and I'm sitting there. He told me, he says, "Cut the engine off." I didn't think about it. Just cut the engine off. So we wandered around on the sandbar a little while. And get back in it, crank it up, and get out of here.
Right.
In a hurry. So I got out there and left.
Right.
Well, I'm in a college plane. And
right.
I think, well, I'm gonna land on this sandbar. I need to land here. So I land on one sandbar close to where we had landed before. I figured it was safe. Well, I get out of the plane. I left the plane sitting there idling.
Right.
And I did not realize that a Cessna 150 idling vibrates and it sinks into the sand.
So how'd you get it out?
I had to hand dig it out. I killed the engine.
Right.
And it took me about 45 minutes or an hour to dig that thing out.
Right.
And then I got it out of there. That's the last sandbar
that I landed on. Right, yeah. People do it all the time. They have like Tundra tires and stuff like that. Help mitigate.
We got wheel pants on this thing.
A shovel that
it only goes down so far, and it's on the wheel pants.
Yeah, right. Golly, man. Yeah, I don't know that I would have ever thought of the vibration that you were digging, but 100%.
Looking after it happened, I look back and he had a reason for telling me. It had probably happened to him.
Yeah.
He had a reason for telling me to cut the plane off.
Yeah, right.
I thought, well, prop sitting out there spinning, throwing a little sand,
Yeah.
I thought,
you never thought about it digging a hole? Going down? Yeah, like whenever I first started flying, I was like 16. We ended up. So I was with the flying club, and so a lot of those guys had learned from people like Blackard, and so they would take me out to like these random like flights, like little like crop duster strips and stuff. I was like, well, this is interesting. It's out here in the middle of nowhere. And I remember an instructor that will go unnamed. Like I was like, hey, can we land here? He's like, I don't know, but we are. So we did. So it was fun.
That brings up another story. You talk about people.
Yeah.
Matt Palmer, who owns Big Jake's Barbecue, is a good friend of mine. And Dad and I were sitting over there eating one time, and we were talking about flying. And he said, "You flying?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Got a 172 out at the airport." And I said, He says, "I've always wanted to fly." He said, "I've been bass fishing and hunting and everything. I want to fly." I said, "Well, what are you doing this afternoon?" Let's go. So I took him up flying, and he was hooked.
Yeah.
And so
He's a big pilot now.
oh
like,
yeah,
so,
yeah, he's got a big expensive airplane, and,
Yeah, right.
and, you know, and got several different ratings. And we threw him in the plane, flew him around a little bit, and I parked it. And he says, "How do I learn to fly?" And I said, "Well, I can get a book out here." So
Yeah.
he said, "Well, what about an airplane?" I said,
Take this one.
"Take this one."
Yeah.
So he learned to fly in my 172.
Oh, that was cool.
And we, of course, I'd go up with him. Occasionally, I'd have to make a trip, a business trip or something, and I'd Matt, you want to go with me and just get experience, you know? And said, yeah. So he'd fly right seat, and I'd get us there.
Right.
And it got to the point where I eventually let him log a little time while I was riding along,
Right.
observing.
Right.
So it was a neat experience to kind of. I'm not a CFI, but I could pass experience on to him, you know.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of neat things. I know we're out of time, but
No, that's
I
fine.
had a couple of neat things that had happened. And
Yeah.
I taught him how to clear foul spark plugs.
Oh, okay.
We had flown over to Monticello. I had a customer over in Monticello that needed a part real bad, so I just flew over and delivered it.
Right.
And took him with me. And I was letting him fly over and fly back and log the time. And he ran it a little bit too rich.
Right.
My old 172 did not like to be rich.
Right.
And he flew at low altitude,
Ah.
which he didn't get up in good. It was in the summertime, didn't get up, a little cooler air, it was hot.
Yeah.
And on the way back, six-cylinder Continental, it fouled probably a plug or two.
Yeah. Right.
We lost a cylinder basically.
Right.
And so right seat, I reach over and I grab the throttle, and he grabbed my hand and says, "What are you going to do to my airplane?" "I'm going to land down here at Camden."
Yeah.
And I
Right.
said, "Wait a minute, Matt, this is my airplane."
Yeah.
And I said, "We're not going to crash in Camden. We're going to clean this up."
Yeah. Right.
So I pushed it wide open throttle, grabbed the mixture, and started pulling the mixture out, and found the sweet spot where
Right.
the engine ran the smoothest and the best.
Right.
And I just kind of marked that spot with my thumb.
Yeah.
I pulled it full lean and held it till it almost killed the engine, then went right back to the sweet spot, which it didn't over-richen it.
Right.
It had a good lean, clean mixture.
Right.
And I did that 3 times, and it cleaned that plug off.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And thing plug cleaned off, RPM came back up to wide open.
Yeah.
I pull it back to cruise speed. He didn't lose but about 150 feet in altitude. He
Really?
kept flying the plane
Yeah.
while I was doing all this.
Right.
Which I told him, I said, "That's what you do. You fly the plane."
Yeah. Right.
And so when we got back to Texarkana, we landed, and he got on the cell phone. "Hey, Chris, guess what Adger taught me?"
Yeah. Right. Get all that stuff on spark plug. That's pretty cool.
It's,
Yeah.
tuning race car engines, and an engine is an engine.
Yeah. Right.
They except for a jet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, it's the same principle.
It's
Yeah.
a similar principle.
Yeah. Right.
But they respond to tuning.
Yeah.
That's a dyno an engine.
Yeah.
I'm hunting for that sweet spot.
Right,
Where
right.
it makes the most power.
Yeah. Right.
But it was that was another deal, and we got into one time we went out and came back here late, and the tower had already closed. And usually there's not much traffic after the tower closed.
Right.
But we had a guy shooting an approach. We had a helicopter flying up behind us. We had all sorts of things going on. And it was one of those things where I taught him a little bit of radio procedure with
Right.
using the intercom, not the intercom, but using the radio and telling everybody his intentions.
Right.
And we got everybody, pictured got in his head where everybody was.
Yeah. Right.
Where and when they were everybody was gonna converge at the airport.
Right.
And so basically, I got him in tight on that situation, and I said, "Okay, we're all going to be here at the same time." "What'd I do? you circle.
Yeah, right.
You know,
let it clean up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let everybody else do their deal, and you tell them you're gonna circle and come back in. You know, you do your 360 out here, and away from everybody else, and then we'll land.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it was one of those things that opened his eyes on you know, as a well, he had already had his private by that time.
Right.
And but it was an experience for him to one of the things that you know, if I feel like if I hadn't figured it out and made his way through it.
Right.
But it was like being a good instructor.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Passing on experience.
Yeah, that's something that's like kind of interesting with aviation, that like you end up learning. I can't tell you all the stuff that I've learned from different mechanics over the years, from just like working with different ones, because they all know little things, or this idea or that, or this trick or that trick, or how to safety wire L clamps shut so you don't have to fight them so much, things like that. And it's like the more you work with different people, the more of those little jewels that you pick up, and that's how you become like a good mechanic. And it's the same thing for a pilot. Like if you fly with different guys, you learn like little things from different people that you can kind of like put together and make yourself better. So we learn from each other.
And you're absolutely right. In 2010, when I went to work for Hot Rod Magazine, doing the technical inspections for that Engine Masters program, that was some pretty elite nationwide engine builders, and I got to do the technical part of it. Of course, I couldn't participate in it, and I couldn't I couldn't say anything about anything I saw.
I bet you would take a lot of notes.
But I mental notes.
Yeah,
I took a lot of mental notes about things that I saw.
Right.
And of course, that was my job, was to be observant, to make sure that the rules were that
being
way.
followed.
But what was interesting about that program is that you had all these nationwide
teams,
top engine builders together. And when we had lunch, they'd all be sitting around doing exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They'd be sharing experiences, and they would be sharing tricks and tips.
Yeah, right.
Among themselves.
Right.
And that was, it was always real interesting. So the engine guys are just like the aircraft guys.
Right.
I saw both sides of it.
Yeah, it's a craft for sure.
Yeah.
So they've been doing a lot of reading with like Robert Persing's in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Are you familiar with that book? Yeah, like I just finished that for like the third time, and and every single time I kind of walk away, it's like it's a craft, not like it's not just a job or whatever else. It's like there's a craft to it.
And you've got to have a little bit of a talent.
Yeah.
To go along with the desire.
Yeah, right.
And that's one of the things that I've noticed about employees that I had through the years. I had some employees that were very, very talented.
Yeah. But
they could care less. Their lifestyle and stuff was negative toward the work that they were good at.
Yeah.
And then I had some employees that were good all the way around.
Yeah.
They had a desire to do it.
Yeah, right. That's something that I'm trying to like bake into all of our courses and stuff, like with just trying to push like leadership values, the way you live your life outside of the hangar impacts what happens inside the hangar. Like if you go out on a crazy bender or whatever and you show up like hungover the next day, you're not going to be any good. Even if you're a really good mechanic, you're not going to be really good at what you're doing. If you do, so you have to.
I fired a guy one time for the way he swept the floor.
Really? Well, I'm all right. Now you have my
curiosity.
Curiosity. Yeah, right.
Well, that simplifies it.
Yeah, right.
I was in there with a prospective customer, and this employee's job was to run the boring bar and the honing machine.
Okay.
And we always stopped about 4:30, 4:45, and we cleaned up the shop.
Right.
And I had some real nice spray. The floors were painted like this.
Yeah, right.
And we had some real nice spray and some expensive stuff that when we got it swept up,
it would
then we would mop it.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Well, I was telling this customer how we did such good work and all this stuff and everything, and showing him the equipment and walking him through the shop, and this employee was sweeping up, and he got to the point of putting the spray down, and instead of spraying, he opened the can up and just poured it out.
Yeah.
And I could see dollars hitting the floor that shouldn't be hitting the floor, you
Yeah,
know? And
right.
I said, wait a minute. I said, you're supposed to use a sprayer on that, you know?
Yeah.
And he looked me in the eye and opened the thing back up and poured out 2 or 3 more gulps of it.
Yeah.
You know, I said, okay.
Yeah.
So I went on, talked to the customer,
Yeah.
and it was about quitting time. And I came back here and I said, hey, get your lunchbox, get anything that belongs to you. I said,
And go away.
go away.
Yeah.
You know, like that. Well, why? What did I do? You know?
Yeah.
Well, it was basically, I told you to do something,
Yeah.
and you defied me.
Yeah.
Right there in front of a potential customer.
Yeah,
I said,
right.
that could have cost me money.
Yeah.
I said, your attitude.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, you were being a smarty.
Yeah. All right.
You know, I think that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I said, you defied me. And I said, now, think about your job.
Yeah.
I come in here tomorrow morning and I tell you, bore that engine and put 2.5 thousandths clearance on that thing, on
Yeah.
each cylinder. Am I going to get 2.5, or am I going to get what you want?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And he sat there a minute. He says, but you know I'll do my work. And I said, no, I
No,
don't.
no, yeah, you
Not now.
killed the trust right there.
Not
Yeah,
now.
yeah. There's like probably things like, you know, like the way you do the small things, the way you do the big things,
Right.
and that's a lot of truth to that. So
And that was, you know, and I still to this day don't know whether he was just being a smarty or, because I mean,
Yeah.
I was through with it. I wasn't going to question
Yeah,
it
no.
and give him any slack.
Yeah.
He came back to me about a year and a half later wanting to work again, and I said no.
No.
I said it's gone. You
Yeah.
know? I had trained him, and he was up to that point. You know, things were good.
yeah.
That's all it took.
Yeah, there's whenever I was in 10th Mountain, we were parked next to another division's 58. So same helicopter, always 58s on the other side, and one of my maintenance test pilots was real big on making sure that like all like the little things on the helicopter was like perfect. So like the weather stripping on the back door used to always fall off. Like it's like almost like a design flaw. It's opening and closing. What you'd end up having to
Stringing out.
Yeah, and you'd glue it back up, and then like 10 hours later it's falling off again. And then you're in there with a little plexiglass scraper, scraping off the old like epoxy and putting on new stuff. And it was really annoying, like because I was like, can we just take this off? And he's like, no. And so like he was all about like little things like that. And I remember I'm like 18, 19-year-old private. I'm just like, whatever he says, I'm going to do. But it's
You've
really,
got to.
yeah, right. Yeah. And so, but like we walked past this other helicopter from this other division, and that stuff was like hanging down, and I was like, look at their weather strip, and he goes, yeah, well look at the rest of their helicopter. And I started kind of paying attention to it, and like I looked over at ours was just clean. Like he would never like he would throw a fit if we had to eat dirt on it or whatever else, but theirs was dirty, and like and he kind of points out the fact that he's like. If they don't care enough to like wipe down their own aircraft or like button up that weather stripping, what's going on inside the engine or transmission or something that actually matters, you know? And it's like he goes, you make habits on these little bitty things.
Is the gearbox oiled?
Yeah, right. You know, if you're just kind of like, oh, whatever about this, it's like, well, it's a little bit low. It'll you start to get that attitude going on, and then where does it go? Like, how many people have to die before you correct that? You know? But,
Yeah, that's it.
That's
the deal. How many people have to die?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
somebody's life can depend on your attitude.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, so like it's kind of back to the point was that like it's all about like your character matters almost as much, if not more, than your technical expertise.
Exactly.
You know, so that's
Exactly.
yeah.
That was, I was very fortunate to have. Of course, I've been retired for 6 years now, but I was very fortunate enough to have employees, even when I had my racetracks, the Prescott track and the Tyler Whitehouse track. I lucked out, and I got good people to good work for me. You know, when I had the racetracks going, I had 17 employees at one time. I had the track and us over at the shop.
Right.
Counted all of us together.
It's a good operation.
And it of course it was running me nuts. I was a manager. I'm a hands-on person,
I feel your pain.
You figured that?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I look at it and I see somebody like work. There's like an RV8 that they're always tinkering with out here.
Yeah.
And they're always doing it as I'm leaving after a day of spreadsheets, emails, meetings, and stuff
And
like
you
that.
want to go over and tinker?
I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? But this, I understand the need behind it. But yeah, I feel the pain 100%.
Yeah, it
So,
got to the point,
yeah.
I had 5 employees at the machine shop, and it just got to the point that it was one of those things that it was crazy. But and I was real, I had that bad accident in '99, and 2 of the employees I was down to 4 employees at that time. 2 of the employees just walked out immediately because when they heard that I had the wreck, they
really?
grabbed their gear and left. Well, and the rumor that went around town was I was dead. Well, I was dead.
Right.
But I was revived.
Right.
And the other 2 employees, actually it took a year and a half for me to learn to walk again.
Oh wow.
And they stayed with the business, and through me talking with them, and they were good enough employees that they kept things going, made money, made their paycheck, kept a viable business running. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And that was real interesting, and that they did that. Of course, they stayed with me, and one of them got a real good opportunity to go to work at Red River Army Depot and run the engine dyno in the engine program out
that's
there.
pretty cool.
And so I told him, I said,
I've never been able to compete with that. Yeah,
no, I said, no, I good for him.
Yeah.
He's got benefits I can't give him.
Yeah.
And then the other one, he had a bad situation happen and passed away, and he was a good young man. And then I had a good friend that was a millwright that stepped up, and we finished my career out. Ronnie had helped me with race cars. He was there with me working on the first. Was Ronnie Stewart, who it was. He helped me on my first race car and my first national record that I'd set while I was in college.
Oh wow.
And then he worked as a millwright and for Globe Union over here, and he had retired out over there, and he needed something to do. So
Come on over.
Yeah. And we went racing and worked together and everything.
Right.
Until it was time for us to retire.
Right. Well, there you go. So.
He went to the farm, and I went to the farm.
Right. There you go.
But I really enjoy this. I'm glad you guys are doing this, and I hope that if I can add a little to it, I can add a little help with it a little bit.
Well, definitely be calling you for power plant for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So.
I've still got all my equipment and everything. I could get, and I'm still playing around with my buddy's stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I'll be over there later
Right.
working on a friend of mine's engine, and I'm not. John Q. Public is.
Right.
It's over, but
Yeah.
if you got a buddy that needs something, you got to help him.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and I've got so many friends that I've had around town. There's always somebody that needs something.
Oh yeah.
We can take a student or 2 over there and run them through that mess and
Let them really learn.
get their hands dirty and
There you
let
go.
them see how to do a valve job correctly and do a some valve guide work maybe, and do some cylinder work. That would be if you want to do that, but
Yeah.
you're going to have to teach them to read a micrometer before they get over there.
That's like actually one of the first things they have to learn how to do.
That's
Yeah.
when I hired somebody, that was the first thing I did.
Oh really?
Yeah, I handed them a micrometer,
Right.
and it told them to set it at a certain setting,
Right.
and hand it back to me, and then I'd read it. If it was nowhere close, if it was close, I'd hand it back to them and say, "You might want to
Tweak it a
tweak
little
it a
bit.
little bit.
Yeah. Right.
Look at that a little closer, would you?"
There
And
it
to
is.
give them a benefit, and then a lot of guys you can hand them dial calipers. They'll read the dial caliper, but
Right.
they won't read the micrometer.
Yeah. There's a lot you have to get it just right, like add all the numbers up and everything else like that. Something else, I'll tell you what. Yeah.
But I mean that's basics, and basic math. That was one of the things that I did in high school because I knew I was going to go into engineering.
Yeah.
Is I took every optional class I could take. I took every math I could take. Everything that they offered that was along the lines, and I took it,
Right.
and it helped, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a natural aptitude for it anyway. But I knew I couldn't go anywhere unless I had the basics.
Yeah, right.
And I had been around. My grandfather was in the sawmill business, and my other grandfather was in the industrial business. Ran a big, they called it the mud plant. They did mixed drilling muds here in town, and he was a plant supervisor out there for 26 years. And I was always around mechanical stuff.
Right.
The mechanical part of it came natural.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, hopefully we'll find some more people for it to be natural.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And they're here.
Oh, yeah. We'll get them trained up.
And they probably don't know it, but they need jobs.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Adger Smith, thank you very much for coming on, man.
And good to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see.